Stay out of hospital if you can. The public told to avoid risky behaviour while junior doctors are on strike. NHS leaders are warning there won't be the usual level of care and up to 350,000 appointments could be cancelled.
There's got to be another way to sort out their problems. Stop going on strike because you're affecting children at the end of the day and it's not right.
Also tonight, violence flares in Northern Ireland on the eve of a visit by President Biden. Keir Starmer doubles down on Labour's controversial attack ads targeting the Prime Minister, and we have a close-up look at the Gold State coach that has a glittering role in the Coronation.
This is ITV News with Romilly Weeks.
Good evening. NHS leaders have warned people to avoid risky behaviour that could see them end up in A&E on the eve of what's expected to be the most disruptive strikes ever by junior doctors. The NHS Confederation has called for urgent talks to avoid the walkouts at English hospitals, which are due to begin at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning and last until Saturday. Doctors' unions argue they need a 35% pay increase to make up for 15 years of real terms cuts. Martha Fairley reports.
This week's four-day strike by junior doctors in England could be the most disruptive in the history of the NHS, affecting hundreds of thousands of patients. 16-year-old Rhys McIntyre's had his operation for scoliosis of the spine cancelled 3 times since last September.
It's just hard. My mental health is getting worse. I'm getting panic attacks at school a lot, very often, and it's very, very hard.
His mum fears another round of strikes will only prolong his suffering.
I know I get the reason why they want to strike, but there's got to be a different way, because striking on so many dates, so there's 3 dates that they striked on, and my son's operation didn't go ahead. They can sleep at night, he can't, so it's just not fair.
Junior doctors in England will walk out at 6:59 tomorrow morning for 96 hours. A 3-day strike last month resulted in 175,000 appointments and operations cancelled. This strike could see 350,000 cancellations. The British Medical Association's calling for a 35% pay rise. Junior doctors say striking was a last resort.
We can only apologise to patients whose care will be disrupted. But over the long term, what we've seen is year upon year, things getting worse and worse. And we know that it's only going to go in one direction if we don't take a stand like this at the moment.
The government says doctors' demands are unrealistic, while NHS bosses fear patient safety may be put at risk if services are overwhelmed.
If you have a worry, then there is 111. There's the NHS website. There's your GP. Don't go to A&E unless you really need to. And yes, as we would say to people at all times, try to avoid, risky behaviour, because, the health service is not going to be able to provide the level of care that it wants to over the next few days.
With the government and junior doctors' unions giving no ground in this dispute, both sides are being urged to turn to the conciliation service ACAS to avoid further strikes, putting even more pressure on the NHS. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
Police in Northern Ireland have appealed for calm after petrol bombs were thrown at a police van in Londonderry. It comes on the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement and on the eve of a visit by President Biden to Belfast. Earlier, Rishi Sunak called for a swift return of the power-sharing assembly at Stormont, praising the bravery and compromise shown by the leaders who secured that peace deal. Our senior international correspondent John Irvine reports.
There was a lot of Northern Ireland's history marked today. These are Protestant apprentice boys of Derry marching in mid-Ulster to commemorate the defence of the city in 1689. Before the Good Friday Agreement, such parades could lead to trouble. This took place in a constituency that has a Sinn Féin MP. But peace has cooled things down, and there's a lot more compromise about these days.
Hey, come on, shot, play!
On the other side of the sectarian divide, these are Republicans strutting their stuff through Derry's Cregan estate to celebrate the Easter Rising of 1916. These are the masked public faces of the dissident group that shot dead a journalist here 4 years ago and tried to murder a police officer in February. These people are the reason that MI5 has upped the terrorist threat level here to severe. They had petrol bombs ready, and although by and large the police gave them a wide berth, one Land Rover was attacked after it approached so officers could formally declare the parade illegal. Later, their march took them to a cemetery where they honoured dead IRA members of the past. Afterwards, they retrieved more petrol bombs and went looking for trouble, which the police denied them by backing off completely. They took out their frustration by setting up small, burning barricades. If today was some sort of barometer regarding the support enjoyed by Republican dissidents, well, the numbers were small and they'll be disappointed. But groups like the new IRA remain dangerous, and the Police Service of Northern Ireland is greatly concerned about the potential for a terrorist attack this week. The rigmarole is almost complete ahead of President Biden's expected arrival in Belfast tomorrow. He's visiting a province that over the last 25 years has come on leaps and bounds, but isn't yet entirely at peace with itself. John Irvine, ITV News, Northern Ireland.
As John was saying, President Biden is due to arrive in Belfast tomorrow evening. Carl Dinnan is at Stormont tonight. Carl, with the political process still suspended, that's one place the president seems to be avoiding.
Yeah, that's right, Romilly. And I suppose in one sense, why would President Biden want to come and be linked to an assembly that isn't sitting? I think also, though, there's a political reality, which is that he is a president so associated with nationalism that he is not going to be the man who can persuade unionists to go back into government here. Although some unionists I've spoken to do think he could try a bit harder to show that he understands their perspective. He's only going to be in Northern Ireland for just under 24 hours before heading to the Republic of Ireland for a longer visit, which shows, I suppose, that his priority really is American voters, many of whom identify as Irish Americans. But this is still a presidential visit to Northern Ireland, and the reason it is happening at all is to commemorate this document, the Good Friday Agreement, signed 25 years ago today. The document that cemented the peace here and that ensured that even when there is political deadlock, as we have at the moment, it is dealt with politically, and that the sort of street violence that John Irvine has just been reporting on has never in those 25 years managed to spark a wider conflict of the sort that we knew here for so long.
Right, Carl at Stormont, thank you. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has doubled down on his party's attack adverts against the Prime Minister, saying he will make absolutely zero apologies for being blunt. The online ads have been criticised by Conservative MPs as well as some Labour backbenchers for suggesting Rishi Sunak doesn't believe criminals who abuse children should go to prison. Well, our political correspondent Libby Vina joins me now. Libby, this row's not going away, is it?
No, well, there are people in the Labour Party who are uneasy about these very personal attacks on the Prime Minister, but it seems that Keir Starmer isn't one of them. He penned an article in the Daily Mail today in which he says, "I make absolutely zero apologies for being blunt about this. I stand by every word Labour has said on the subject, no matter how squeamish it might make some feel. When 4,500 child abusers avoid prison, people don't want more excuses from politicians. They want answers." Well, what one senior Labour figure wants, that is David Blunkett, the former Home Secretary, is he wants these ads withdrawn. He said they were deeply offensive. I put that to the Shadow Attorney General. She rejected the criticism.
It's a nasty world. But what we're doing is
so playing nasty is now the Labour Party's policy.
No. We're not just throwing abuse around, which is the way in which, you know, David Blunkett does know politics can descend to sometimes. No, what we're doing is we're saying to the Prime Minister, you can't get away from this. You are Prime Minister. You are ultimately responsible for the criminal justice system, and that's what we're saying.
Well, the Conservatives haven't exactly taken the moral high ground today either. They've gone on the attack, saying that Sir Keir Starmer is really Sir Keir Softy, attacking his record when he was Director of Public Prosecutions. I think where Labour are on this is that they believe that while some people may be put off by all this name-calling, they think that drawing attention to the government's record on law and order will play to their advantage.
Libby, thank you. The mother of two British-Israeli sisters killed in the occupied West Bank has died of her wounds. Maya and Rina D were killed when their car was shot at by a suspected Palestinian gunman. Their mother, Lucy, was in the car with them and had been in a critical condition since the attack on Friday. The Dalai Lama has apologised after a video of him briefly kissing a young boy on the lips went viral. The Tibetan spiritual leader could be heard asking the boy to suck his tongue. The incident happened at a public gathering in India in February. The apology says the interaction was innocent and meant to be playful. Joe Biden appears to have confirmed he'll run for re-election in next year's presidential election. Speaking at the White House's annual Easter egg roll, Biden told NBC's Al Roker he's made a decision but isn't ready to make an official announcement.
Are you saying that you would be taking part in our upcoming election in 2024?
Well, I'll either be rolling an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out.
Come on, help a brother out. Make some news for me.
Well, I plan on running now, but we're not prepared to announce it yet.
Buckingham Palace has confirmed that King Charles's coronation procession will only be around a fifth of the length of the route his mother took after she was crowned. The King will break with tradition by using the iconic gold state coach for only one leg of the journey from Westminster Abbey. Lizzie Robinson reports.
Weighing 4 tons and standing at 3.5 metres tall, the gold stagecoach. It has been at the heart of every coronation procession since 1831 and will return to the streets of London next month, carrying the King and Queen Consort from Westminster Abbey to Buckingham Palace following the coronation ceremony.
It's deliberately made this large so that people can see the sovereign travelling in state and state processions. Because of this, it's only used at a walking pace.
The carriage might be impressive in size, but it did not impress the late Queen Elizabeth for its comfort. She recalled the journey for her own coronation procession in it as horrible. For this coronation, it will only travel on one leg of the journey, with Charles and Camilla using the more modern Diamond Jubilee stagecoach for the other. They will set off from Buckingham Palace in that Diamond Jubilee stagecoach, travel along the Mall, through Admiralty Arch, along the south side of Trafalgar Square, down Whitehall, and then along Parliament Street. The procession will then travel round Parliament Square, arriving at Westminster Abbey, where the service will begin at 11 a.m. Following the ceremony, the King and Queen Consort will return to Buckingham Palace along the same route. And following the gold stagecoach for that journey will be Martin Oates, there to apply the brakes.
My great-grandfather started here in 1914 and he was here for George VI's coronation. And you're walking down the Mall, and when you're part of it, you do think of all the family members that have been part of it.
And for the King too, he will be following in his family's footsteps on an historic day that is now just a month away. Lizzie Robinson, ITV News.
And that is all for now. I will be back with the late news at 10:15. Until then, good evening.
The warm weather continues. So why not squeeze the most out of the day? Heinz Tomato Ketchup sponsors ITV National Weather.
Hello there, very good evening to you. I hope you've had a lovely Easter bank holiday weekend. The weather has been pretty kind to us, hasn't it? But it's all about to change, turning much more unsettled, I'm afraid, over the next few days. Wet and very windy throughout Tuesday, clearing away on Wednesday, easing winds Thursday and Friday, but still pretty showery. And for everyone over the next few days, it is going to be noticeably cooler. So definitely not looking quite so cheerful. And as we look ahead to this evening and overnight, we've still got some fairly heavy showers on the scene for many, although tending to die away, particularly in the south by the end of the night. A little bit cooler than of late as well, although temperatures tending to stay up a little bit more there across those southwestern parts. And then we look ahead to tomorrow. It doesn't start too badly. In fact, dry and sunny across many areas to start the day. But then the next rain-bearing, wind-bringing Atlantic frontal system zooms in from the west, giving endless rain, I'm afraid. Really heavy, persistent rain moving in from the west, accompanied by very strong winds. This shaded area here is the wind weather warning, and that continues to spread eastwards and northwards as we look throughout Tuesday afternoon and evening. Now, it is going to be clearing off the scene on Wednesday, leaving still an unsettled picture. The wind warning is in this sort of position by the time we get to the afternoon. Rain as well, unsettled, some sunshine, some drier spells, but generally speaking, the very unsettled theme continues for the rest of the week. And as I say, I'm afraid looking cooler as well. That's it. See you later. Bye-bye for now.
Heinz Tomato Ketchup sponsors ITV National Weather.